Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Wednesday, March the 5th, 2025. Now, I think I might have said yesterday in yesterday's video that it was March the 3rd. It was, of course, the 4th. So I did get the thumbnail right, but didn't actually mention the date properly when I introduced the video. So apologies about that. We do have days sometimes, but it is Wednesday, March the 5th today. And a little bit more of a continuation with Greasegate. And just forgive me too, guys, there's a little bit of wind today, so if it gets a little bit windy through the microphone, I apologise. But so Greasegate continues with Lamont Roach and Gervonta Davis. Now, Amanda Serrano actually entered into the conversation, and I actually forgot all about this. Amanda Serrano, of course, 7 or 8 division world champion, one of the greats. She actually had to pull out of a fight last year when she got grease in her eyes after getting her hair done a couple of days before her fight. Now, apparently she went for a run and the grease got in her eyes and she had to pull out on the night of the fight, which is very, very strange, very, very strange. But very, very similar circumstances, and Gervonta Davis obviously did the same thing. So the question I've got is why the hell would you be getting that sort of treatment to your hair 2 days before you're going to fight? It just doesn't make any sense. I understand the girls have got to get their hair braided. That's fine. Why do you got to put all the treatment in there? I think she's learned her lessons, by the way. But Tank Davis, I haven't actually heard this from about a men's or male boxer before in this situation. That's what's even more bizarre about it, to have grease in his eyes from his hair. I've seen a fight before where the guy got a haircut mid-round because it was in his eyes. His little bun or whatever he had was compromised during the round, and they had to literally cut his hair off during the fight. That was pretty funny. He would have been horrified after the fight. You could tell that he was one of those fighters who took a lot of pride in his appearance, and the fact they cut all his hair off during the round was pretty funny. But yeah, it's just look, for a fighter so experienced as Tank, it's very, very peculiar that this would happen. So anyway, I'm sure he's learned his lessons. Now, on the situation itself with him taking a knee and then getting his face wiped during the round, the New York State Athletic Commission has said there was a technical error during the round which prohibited them from going to the replay. Now, I don't even know why you would need a replay during the round. I think we all saw what happened. Okay, and whatever caused Tank to go down, whether it was a little jab that poked the braid in his eye, or it was the grease, or whatever it might have been. I know a couple of reporters have actually said it was a punch. Well, okay, it was maybe a grazing punch or a lightly landing punch, but it was more the effect of the hair in the eye or the grease, whatever the hell it was. But yeah, he did take the knee, then went to his corner. Now, yeah, the State Athletic Commission have said, well, they ran out of time during the round or the round break because of a technical error. Now, again, why does there need to be a replay where it was clear as day what happened? Steve Willis probably should be the target of, well, what happened, Steve? And again, it still hasn't been clarified, the rules. I think, though, from what I've seen, that he was definitely in the wrong. He was definitely in the wrong. He should have given him a count, and actually he did start to count and then stopped and then sort of admonished Gervonta Davis and just waved them back on. And of course, it cost Lamont Roach the win and the lightweight title. So the fact that they've said there was a technical error and they couldn't review it, they're just going to, well, they pretty much pushed it under the carpet. They say they are going to investigate it, but what is there to investigate? All that might happen if they investigated it is that while Steve Willis was in error, made a mistake, and should have given him a count, and I reckon that'll be it. I don't think there will be a reversal of any decisions or no contest or anything like that. I just think they will admit there was a mistake from Steve Willis and probably try and get a rematch ordered by the WBA, and that'll probably be about it. I might be wrong. Hopefully I am wrong, by the way. I don't necessarily want to see the fight turned over, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's one of those things. I feel for Lamont Roach, I really do. This cost him the fight. but I'm not a big fan of no contests and overall indecisions after the fact. I mean, we see it in sport every single week. Mistakes are made that do cost teams or individuals points or goals or wins or whatever it might be. But I think it's just one of those things, and it's a little bit unlike the Ryan Garcia and Devon Haney thing that happened. But yeah, it's one of those things. And if it is the case that Steve Willis is found to be in error, well, then maybe he deserves everything that's coming his way, because he's cost a young fighter a second world title and potentially millions of dollars. So we'll see what plays out with that anyway. All right, yesterday, a little bit of Aussie news to get through today, by the way. The Tszyu, Joey Spencer card has been announced. And when I initially looked at it, I was a little bit, but after having a look over the entire card, there's some really good fights on there. A little bit puzzling why there are certain fights on the card, and certainly why certain fights aren't on the main card. There's 10 fights in total. 5 on the prelims, which will be 3 on Fox Sports, and then you've got the 5 on the main event pay-per-view. I'll go through them, and then I'll have my sort of say. So let's start right at the bottom. Actually, no, we'll start right at the top. This is the main card. Okay, so no surprise here, of course. Tszyu, Joey Spencer will be the main event. The main support is Andre Saavedra, Mikhail Nielsen. Now, I'll get to that in a sec, but I have no idea why that fight is on the card, but that is the main support. Co-main, if you want to call it that. Then we have the rematch, Brendan Grush and Liam Taliva. Then we have Koen Mazudia, Dan Hill. And to round out the main card, we have Olympian Callum Peters against Marcus Haywood. Then on the non-televised prelim card, we have Andre Mikhailovich against Blake Wells. Then we have Joel Taylor versus Jake Wiley. Brent Walton versus Asayas Seti, I think I've pronounced that correctly. Cody Beacon, Ryan Day. And then the debut of World Youth Champion Cooper O'Connell. He'll fight Benjamin Amos. Well, let's just start from the ground up and have a look at these fights. Now, Cooper O'Connell, it's great to have him on the card. Fantastic Olympian, the current junior world champion. I think it's great to have him on the card, but just the first fight in front of probably 50 people in the arena, I don't know, I know it's great to have him on Tszyu's undercard, and I know the young man to be wrapped. But geez, I would have thought they would have maybe trumped him up a bit more and put him on like they did with Callum Peters. Callum Peters went to the Olympics, and that's great, but didn't win anything at the Olympics. Cooper O'Connell is a world junior champion. And take it from me, I know how hard that is to win something like that, having been to tournaments like that, and that is a monumental effort from Cooper O'Connell. And to have him kick off the show, you know, in front of nobody, I don't understand it. I would have thought they might have, as good as it is for the young guy, and as I said, he might have said, I don't care where I'm in the card, I just want to be on the Tszyu event. That's fine. But I'm just not sure this is the right way to launch the career of what will hopefully be, you know, a new young gun to the stable. And just to bury him in the first fight on the card doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe they could have saved him look, they could have even put him on the March 12 card on the Thurman and Jarvis card and had him way up the card and really hyped up his appearance in the pros. But no, they've put him as the first fight on a 10-fight card. Don't agree with it, but end of the day, as I said, maybe Cooper O'Connell was just wrapped just to get on the card and didn't care less. But I'm surprised that Glenn Jennings didn't sort of step in and say, no, we might hold him back for another card and get him up there as one of the main fighters on the card and really launch it in style. I mean, they did it they've done it with Callum Peters. They did it also with Harry Garside. Not so sure why they haven't done it with Cooper O'Connell. Maybe they want to shield him a little bit from the pressure. But hey, you're in the pros now. That's all about pressure. Get up there amongst it. But anyway, I'm sure they've got the reasons. Cody Beacon, 7-2. 4 KOs against Ryan Day, 5-0, 4 KOs. Don't know a lot about Ryan Day. Seen Cody Beacon a couple of times. Should be a good scrap, that one. Brent Walton, 3-1, 2 KOs against Isaiah Seti. 2-3-1 with 1 KO. Now, that record is very while it's not reflective of what sort of fighter he is, he's a good fighter. He got upset by the Korean, I think, in his last fight, but should be a nice scrap as well. This is a really, really good fight. Joel Taylor and Jake Wiley. Joel Taylor, 12-1, 4 KOs. Jake Wiley, 16-1, 15 KOs. This will be one of the fights of the card, and I don't know, again, why they haven't saved this for one of the actual televised cards that they do. The Fox, is it No Limit on Fox, whatever it is? Or even another, maybe wait until a Nikita fights or whatever. But this is a fight worthy of being one of the main support fights on one of those big cards, or even a main event on a No Limit on Fox event. So again, I'm a little bit perplexed why this is so deep down on the card. And same as this one, Andre Mikhailovich, Blake Wells. Now, this will be another ripper fight. Now, Andre Mikhailovich, we know a lot about. Of course, he got demolished by Janabek, Alan Canula in his last fight, but really entertaining and very marketable against Blake Wells, who, despite a couple of losses to Taj Singh, is a very, very good fighter and can punch. So, again, surprised this is so far down the card. It will be, I suppose, if you want to look at it, the main event of the prelim card, if that makes sense. But that'll be a really, really good fight too. So, I don't know. I know they've got the reasons for all this, because then we go into the main card. Now, Cullen Peters and Marcus Haywood. Now, take it from me, that's going to be a one-sided beatdown. So, that's going to open the card. And I don't see the sense in having that type of fight open the card when you've got a couple of rippers on the undercard. I know they're probably looking at the rounds factor. Mikhailovich and Wells and Taylor and Wiley is a lot better fight than Peters and Haywood. Now, I know they're trying to showcase Marcus, not Marcus Haywood, certainly not. I know they're trying to showcase Cullen Peters and get his profile out there, but on this type of card, on a main event pay-per-view, I just don't see the sense in having him destroy Marcus Haywood on national TV, especially when they've got young Cooper O'Connell as the first fight on the 10-fight card. But anyway, I'm sure, again, they've got the reasons. Koa Mazzuti, Dan Hill, really, really good fight. It really is. Excellent fight between two really good 154-pounders. But look, let's face it, in the scheme of things, neither one of them are really at world level. It will be a really good scrap, don't get me wrong. But I'll tell you what, geez, the Joel Taylor and Jake Wiley and even Mikhailovich and Blake Wells fights sort of get me a little bit more excited than this one, but that's okay. I know maybe they're looking for some fights with Mazzuti. Maybe they're looking at a Zarafa fight down the track and want to keep his name out there. I don't know. But look, it's going to be a really, really good fight, but just not so sure it should be as high as it is. And Brandon Grutch, Liam Taliva. Now, this is probably the biggest head scratcher on the card. Now, don't worry, this will be a great fight. Don't get me wrong. Brendan Grutch, Liam Taliva, the first fight was a ripper. Grutch got the win with a sensational knockout, but to be third last on the card, I just don't get it. 3-0, 2 KOs is Grutch, and Taliva is 6-1 with 2 knockouts. So again, really, really good fight, but the second fight before the main fight of a main event pay-per-view, don't agree with it, guys. I'm sorry. And this is, again, probably the biggest head scratcher is Andre Saavedra, Mikael Nielsen. Now, again, make no mistake, Saavedra, good fighter, crowd pleaser. We've all seen him in with Tapia and Hardman. And Nielsen, never even seen him fight, to be honest. I know he's world ranked. That's for the WBO international middleweight title. There's obviously some sort of contractual obligation to maybe another promoter that's involved with this card. There's obviously some reason, but why would you have a fight that, let's face it, pretty much no one in Australia gives a toss about, Saavedra and Nielsen, as the co-main event and main support to a Tim Tszyu fight? Very, very strange. Now, I know there's always reasons behind what they do, but this is the daytime card, because I know sometimes when it comes down to the amount of rounds they can put on and everything else, maybe they go for these types of fights, because the Grutch doesn't actually say what it is, but I don't think it'll be a 10 or 12 round. And Mazzuti is probably and Hill's probably a 10 rounder. Peters and Haywood, doesn't matter what that's scheduled for, that ain't going long. So the fact that it's a Sunday event, I I don't know why they couldn't have put a couple of those other fights on. I know the Saavedra and Nielsen fight, as I said, there's got to be something, some sort of obligation to some other promoter or network or whatever it is, the reason that's there. But does it have to be the co-main event? It's when you have a fight of this magnitude of Tszyu and Spencer, a big pay-per-view, you want a really, really good scrap as a co-main. And No Limit have been so good in this aspect. Now, maybe they could have put Mazzudia and Hill as a co-main. That would have been a suitable fight. But I definitely wouldn't have had, well, in the perfect world, Saavedra and Nielsen wouldn't even be on the card. But again, there's obviously reasons for it. Grutch and Taliva, wouldn't have it on the main card. I wouldn't have Peters and Haywood on the main card. I would have Tszyu and Spencer. I'd have Grutch and Taliva, Tszyu and Spencer, of course, Mazzudia and Hill as the co-main. I would definitely have Mikhailovich and Wells and Taylor and Wiley on the main card. So, look, again, I know there's reasons behind it, but I'm probably more excited by the undercard of the undercard than the main pay-per-view portion of it. So let me know what you think. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that Grutch and Taliva aren't good fights. I'm not saying Peters is not worthy of, you know, being on the big stage. What I'm saying is that this is a $70 pay-per-view, and they've buried a couple of really good fights on the prelim card. Maybe they're trying to give the fight fans out there a bit of a gift and have a couple of good fights that are free. I don't know. But anyway, it's a bit odd, but that is the card. So I've waffled on about that long enough. I'm sure you'll give me your opinions, but what do you think of the pay-per-view? The whole card itself is probably worth the $70, don't get me wrong. I'm just a little bit befuddled by the order and why you would bother to have a couple of those fights on that main prelim card if you don't really intend for people, you know, to take much notice of them. Anyway, some more news. Now, Liam Paro, big news, speaking of No Limit. Liam Paro has signed with No Limit. Yes, he has signed with No Limit. I think there was a little bit of smoke the other night when he was on the Liam Wilson telecast and was being interviewed and everything. So a little bit going on there. And of course, where there's smoke, there's fire. He has left Matchroom and joined No Limit. He's apparently wrapped to join the same team as Tim Tszyu. Now, a lot of people I know will say, why would you leave one of the biggest promoters in the world in Matchroom and go to No Limit? Well, I don't see any problem with it, if I'm being honest. Now, I just think if he stays with Matchroom, Matchroom's not really going to care too much about building him up in Australia and making him a star in Australia. All Eddie's going to be worried about is matching him in really big fights, whether it be in Australia, in Riyadh, in America, wherever, Puerto Rico, where he's fought before, of course. So all he's worried about is getting him the biggest fights and then probably milking him for as much as he can, and then pretty much throwing him over the shoulder, which is that's boxing. That's boxing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. That's boxing, and we've seen some pretty cutthroat decisions made by promoters just cutting fighters. So I think if he stayed with him, there's not a lot of potential for Liam to build his brand. Yes, he'll get some big fights, but I think he'll just be thrown in with the big boys in the division and a little bit of a sink or swim sort of situation. But I think with the No Limit thing, I think it's a win-win for both. Now, Liam gets a promoter who's going to probably put him on main event pay-per-views here in Australia, worst case the No Limit on Fox events, but really invest in getting his profile out there and getting a big following from the Australian public. And yeah, also from Liam's point of view, obviously he gets to fight home more regularly, and he's got the biggest promoter in Australia behind him, sort of kicking him along. And No Limit, of course, get another star to add to the stable to showcase their events, because they haven't got a lot to play with. They've got a lot of content they've got to fill and not a lot to play with as far as stars. So I think it's a really good signing by both parties in that respect. And the question might come up, well, now he's left Matchroom and gone with No Limit, what happens to a potential fight with George Kambosos, who is with Matchroom? I don't think Eddie or No Limit will care too much about that. Eddie said he doesn't care who's with who here in Australia. He just wants the best fight. So when the time comes and George Kambosos hopefully gets past his fight, maybe he beats Hitchens after that, then you would think that Eddie Hearn will hold no grudges and will happily sit down with No Limit and negotiate George versus Liam on a big pay-per-view here in Australia. So you've got to remember, it is a business, and I actually think it's a good idea from Liam, because if he, as I said, if he stays in Matchroom, he'll just be thrown in with whoever and then discarded. Where in Australia, at least No Limit, who have shown they can build fighters, will get behind him and build his profile, as well as getting in those big fights as well. So good stuff all around there. Keith Thurman was interviewed yesterday in his first press conference since being here. Well, if you can call it a press conference, it was at the gym, but he had a lot of people there with microphones in his face. And a little bit weary of the Australian judges, he did say, and the referees. I did point out Brock Jarvis's fight with Adrian Rodriguez, where he got hit with a body shot and went down, and there was no count. I can assure you, Keith, that Adrian Rodriguez had had enough, and there was no reason to count. So have a little bit of faith in our officials over there. Look, if it goes to the scorecards, I've got a feeling the fact that you're a bit of an A-lister in the boxing world will hold you in good stead, and you won't be ripped off by the Aussie judges. But we will see. I've got a feeling it's not probably going to go to the judges' scorecards either way. I think I think Keith Thurman will win, but don't discard Brock Jarvis in his own country. You might think that Thurman might turn up totally washed, and Brock Jarvis overwhelms him with just youthful pressure and power. Or you might see Keith Thurman nice and slick. G'day, mate. Nice and slick. Just take Brock to school and maybe stop him late. So either way, I think it's going to be, look, it'll be a good event. Looking forward to, what is it, next week? So should be a good event. And one last thing before I go. Eddie Hearn has mentioned that he is exploring Jai Opetaia against Badu Jack. Now, fight news is imminent apparently with Jai. Not quite sure it's going to be Badu Jack, but it sort of falls in line with what Eddie said, that within a couple of weeks he wants to have a fight locked in for Jai, and he did mention that Badu Jack is on his radar to unify the WBC and IBF belt. So maybe some big news coming there for Aussie boxing as well. So guys, that's probably going to do it for today. Plenty going on in Aussie boxing. Hope you have a great Wednesday, and we'll catch you tomorrow.